as the eighth best run defense. Saquon against top 10 run defenses, averaging a little under 100 yards. So
that's not nothing. That's 35 yards off what his regular season pace.
That's true. 3 touchdowns, 5 games, either a lot or a little, depending on glass half full, glass half empty. What's more likely for Saquon, huge game or shut down?
Look, I hope, and not because I'm pulling for the Eagles or anything, but I would love to see Saquon Barkley have a great game, because there's nothing better in football than a running back going for between 150 and 200 yards. It's just great entertainment. That said, if I have to choose between these two, I'm choosing that they slow him or shut him down. Because the greatest running backs ever don't always have great games. And by shutdown, I'm saying 70 yards or less. Wow. Now, a lot of people would say, well, James Cook and Joe Mixon just ran for almost 90 against the Chiefs.
Yep.
But the difference is I think the Chiefs will go in there and stack the box and believe that they can let Jalen Hurts try to beat them, but they got to shut down Saquon Barkley. And I also think there's a good chance the Chiefs could get a lead. And if the Chiefs get a 10-point lead or better, then that could lead Philadelphia away from the run. So I do think that there's a better chance that he just has a so-so game than that he goes berserk and runs for 180 yards.
There is one reason and one reason only that the Philadelphia Eagles went out and acquired Saquon Barkley this offseason. That's to be in this game. That's to have this opportunity. He's delivered all season long. So, yes, he's going to have a big game. Like, I'm not saying he's going to have that 200-yard game, but this is what he does. This is what he's done all season long. This is how they win. In their 184 snaps of offense, he's had the ball in his possession 73 times. That's almost 40% of their offense. So he's going to have the opportunities. And if you give Saquon Barkley opportunity, he's going to bust one. That's just period. Like, that's what he does. I get it. The Kansas City Chiefs have been great against the run individually as far as Derrick Henry goes, and Saquon Barkley is an isolated running back. But as far as rushing attacks, they give up yards. And if the Philadelphia Eagles lean into who Saquon Barkley is and what he's clearly provided this entire season, and particularly, if we just want to look at this postseason run, he's going to have a big game. It's their recipe and has been their recipe for success the entire season.
Yeah, everything you said is correct, except for the fact that it's going to happen. Like, they won't let it. Like, the Chiefs last gave up 100 yards in the playoffs to Sony Michel in the 2018 AFC Championship game. That was also the last playoff game the Chiefs had without Steve Spagnuolo as their defensive coordinator. Since then, 18 playoff games. Here are the numbers for the opposing team's starting running back. None of them have gotten to 90. And by the way, it's like, have they faced any good ones? Peak Derrick Henry with the Titans in the AFC Championship game. Christian McCaffrey in the Super Bowl last year. Now, Christian, to his credit, did a lot of damage out of the backfield catching the ball, but he was 21 carries for 80 yards running the football. It'll have to be someone else. People have pointed out that James Cook, 13 for 85 yards. I think that was part. He did a great job. The other part was the Chiefs went into that game just like they went into the Texans game, saying, if you want to hand the ball off, hand the ball off. We want to keep the ball out of your star quarterback's hands. And maybe the Bills should have leaned more into that or not, doesn't matter. I agree with you entirely. I think it's going to be the exact opposite game plan. It's going to be what they did in the AFC Championship game in 2019 against Derrick Henry, which is we drop back and pass. We're going to give you looks that demand you pass the ball because we're not going to let your MVP caliber running back beat us. And I just think this defense is too sound. I think the best part of this defense is its defensive line. And I think that the numbers you showed at the beginning are instructive. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. But if he averaged 130 yards per game this year, but in 5 games against top 10 defenses, he was at 95, that then means in the 16 games or however many, or 13 other games he's played, he's like at 150.
Yeah.
Okay. This is unbelievable. This is, oh my God, this is unbelievable. Where do I want to begin? Because there's so much to get after this. Oh my God. Okay. First off, when you go up against better teams, better defenses, better offenses, etc., your numbers go down. Okay? That's consistently what happens for even the all-time great players. Even Patrick Mahomes himself, his numbers go down. Did he play better against an awful defense like the Buffalo Bills? Or did he play better against a great defense like the Houston Texans? Or like versus the Denver Broncos? You tell me. You tell me. So that alone is so disingenuous. It's so disingenuous. Numbers always go down. You feast on the bad teams, and then the numbers kind of balance out a little bit. It's absurd. Here's the top 10 defenses. Okay? Just in general, total defenses. Eagles we see at 1. But the Chiefs played the Texans and the Broncos and the 49ers. Okay? What were Patrick Mahomes' numbers in those games, guys? You tell me. Were they amazing? Were they amazing? When they played the Broncos, did Patrick Mahomes light them up? The 49ers. Let's take a look at that game. Oh, that's right. 154 yards, 5.7 yards per attempt, 0 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and a 44 rating. Well, his averages, that's a huge drop-off. Patrick Mahomes, yeah, exactly. So if it's good enough for Patrick Mahomes, then it's good enough for Saquon Barkley. Like, just stop. Your numbers always go down in those situations. Just stop. Such insanity. I mean, heck, the Chiefs scored 16 points against the Broncos in that first matchup. At home. So just stop. It's so absurd. Again, I'm not guaranteeing that Saquon Barkley is going to have this big game. I'm not saying that because I think going up against this Kansas City Chiefs team, I don't care where the rankings are, I think it will be the hardest because of Spags more than anything. That's how great I think Spags is. But to try to use the books, to try to use the stats as a reference, we're like, well, this is a big problem. And then start talking about 2019 numbers. This is how disingenuous you can be. Because you just wanted to talk about how the Kansas City Chiefs, how Patrick Mahomes had to overcome such a terrible defense, referencing 2019, and yet now you're referencing how that very defense shut down Derrick Henry. You can't keep doing that. You can't keep talking out of both sides out of your mouth, man. It doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. It's ridiculous at this point. It's ridiculous. Not to mention, who cares about the individual rusher? Some of those teams were rushing for more than 100 yards total. I mean, here we go. They rushed for over 110 yards. Christian McCaffrey had 80 yards receiving, which he conceded a bunch of those were, very short little passes, which were glorified runs. So again, put things in context. 2019 Super Bowl. 141 yards rushing. 49ers. And now this idea that that when the Chiefs played the Texans weren't trying to stop, put as much attention on Mixon is insane. Because everyone and their mother knows that offense was really predicated on that run game. Hugely. In fact, Nick Wright himself ripped C.J. Stroud all season for not being very good. And now the Chiefs were suddenly afraid of him? What? How does that make any sense? That makes none. Also, let's unpack Saquon Barkley now and what he did against these teams. Let's put it in perspective. So, again, according to Fox, because it's hard to know what they even mean by rankings, but if we talk about rushing defense, we got the Ravens, who the Eagles played. They played the Buccaneers, the the Steelers, and the Packers twice. So that's those 5 games. Let's do this. Let's do this one by one. Saquon Barkley, his first ever game with the Philadelphia Eagles on a slippery field. They ran for 144 yards. Saquon Barkley feasted, had an awesome day, had near over 130 yards from scrimmage, 4.5 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. It was an amazing game. And again, everybody was slipping and sliding. Still a great game. Bucks versus Eagles. That game was a mess with all the turnovers and the muff punt or kickoffs and such. Saquon Barkley had 10 carries for 84 yards with a long of 59 yards, 8.4 yards per attempt. They were not running the ball in the way that they had originally wanted to do. This was one of the final straws. But Saquon Barkley, when he was balling, it was 160 degrees. When he went on a huge run, he had to be taken out of the game and get oxygen. And A.J. Brown wasn't playing. And Devontae Smith wasn't playing. And Lane Johnson wasn't playing. You think that affects the offense? You think that affects the team? I think so. Here's the game where they played against the Steelers. Saquon Barkley, 19 carries for 65 yards. Again, less carries. And this was the game where they said, you know what? We're going to throw the ball a lot. 290 yards from Jalen Hurts, 9.1 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, and a 125.3 rating. Not to mention they still ran for 131 yards. Jalen Hurts, 15 carries for 45. Kenneth Gainwell, 7 for 20. Not to mention, Saquon Barkley also got injured that game. He was banged up. It was like his abdomen or something. I forget exactly, but he was kind of taken away. And you didn't see him for a while, which is why Gainwell got a bunch of those carries. So, and again, when they said, okay, well, we're going to throw the ball here, boom. Boom. Interesting. Eagles versus Ravens. A pretty intense game going up against, of course, Lamar Jackson, etc., etc. Saquon Barkley was 23 carries for 170 yards. 4.7 yards per carry, 1 touchdown, and a long of 25. And they ran for 140 yards. 4.2 yards per attempt. Jalen Hurts was 9 for 29. Again, am I expecting this Eagles team to be able to feast? Are we saying that Saquon Barkley has to go 23 for 150 against every single team? Like, so he's supposed to do that against the great teams and the bad teams? Then that wouldn't even make sense. That wouldn't even make sense. None. Zero. And I think this was another game where Devontae wasn't playing. I think he was banged up too in this game. So they weren't even at full strength. And then now this was the Packers in the playoffs. 25 carries for 119, 4.8 yards per attempt. Jalen Hurts, 6 for 36, 6 yards per attempt. Kenneth Gainwell, 3 carries, 14 yards, 4.7 yards per attempt. They ran for 169 yards, 5 yards per attempt. And we all know that Saquon Barkley, you could add another 60 yards because he would have rushed for touchdown. Although I'll say, you know what, that team got injured at that point, so who cares? So I won't even count that. Like, what are we saying here? That's those 5 games. Boom. Just like that. The Steelers, their average rushing yards allowed, 98.7. In the playoffs, 199. The Packers, 99.4 yards during the regular season, 169 yards. So if you want to say, oh, well, that's a decrease in yards per when you play this team versus that team. Okay, well, the Packers were doing great defensively all season, and then in the one playoff game that they played, boom. Interesting. The Chiefs also, rushing yards allowed average 101.8. In the playoffs, they're now up to 148. So I don't know what to tell you, man. And again, to just, I don't know. I mean, notice Notice how essentially like every team does more. I mean, I don't even know, honestly. Just ridiculous. And again, if you want to kind of keep playing this game, then just do passing defense. Again, according to Fox Sports, the Chiefs are 18th. They're 18th. And so passing then, okay, fine. You want Jalen Hurts to pass the ball? Okay. Well, he'll get after it just like he did versus the Cowboys. Just like he did versus the Packers. Just like he did versus the Giants. The Commanders. Like, I don't understand. So we can do this whole song and dance, this whole game of adding the math and doing this and doing that. It doesn't actually get us anywhere. It just doesn't. Like I've said this so many times. I'm a broken record, but if it was that simple, if it was that straightforward, then sports betting would be so easy, so simplified that everybody would just be able to win, that gambling wouldn't be able to exist anymore. So to now try to use this in a way to make an argument that there's somehow proof, or that this is like evidence, or to be like, this is concerning, is so absurd. If you want to talk about how the Kansas City Chiefs will be able to slow down Saquon Barkley because of Spags and this and that, then I'm so for that, because I do fundamentally believe that this will be Saquon Barkley's hardest game. I believe that. Just as I defended the nonsense of all the stats like that, I still believe that this will still be Saquon's hardest game. I do not think he's just going to have a walk in the park and rush for 200 yards. You know, like Greg Jennings is guaranteeing that he's going to have a big game. I'm not making any guarantees. None. But to try to use these nonsense stats like this, it's just kind of absurd. It really is. It really is. Also, look at these rankings. This is total offense now. The top teams: Ravens, Lions, Buccaneers, 49ers, Packers, Falcons, Commanders. Those are the top 7. What do those teams all have in common? Oh, they all lost. They're no longer playing anymore. How'd the Ravens do? How'd the Lions do? How'd the Buccaneers do? The 49ers didn't even make the playoffs. How'd the Packers do? Oh, not good. Oh, the Falcons, they didn't make the playoffs. Oh, okay. Now let's keep going for the top 10. Bengals, they didn't make the playoffs. I mean, according to this, the Chiefs are 16th best offense, total offense. So if you want to live and die by these rankings, by all means, go for it. But then according to this, like, these offenses are just unstoppable. I mean, here we go. Best passing offense: Bengals, Lions, Buccaneers, 49ers, Falcons, Vikings, Ravens, Seahawks. Wow. A lot of teams not playing anymore. Bills, Rams, Cowboys. You realize that the Cowboys, with either Dak Prescott or Cooper Rush, technically have a better offense, passing offense, than Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs? Don't tell me it's because of weapons. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that, because I don't got nothing to do with that. I heard all season long that the Cowboys have no weapons and their O-line and their injuries and getting Cooper Rush. So, okay, if we want to play this game with all these, these numbers, then let's go for it. Because according to this, Geno Smith, Cooper Rush, and whoever the heck the quarterback is of the day for the Raiders have a better offense, passing offense, than the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. That's something, man. That is something. And now here's the rushing offense. The Bills were top 9. So you think that the Chiefs were just giving that away? They were just like, oh, we don't care that you're going to run the ball? What? How does that make sense? That doesn't make sense. No, of course not. That would be madness. And the Eagles averaged 179 rushing yard average. And then in the playoffs, that jumped up to 227. The Ravens 187, jumped up to 237. Commanders, 154. They took a dip. Buccaneers, 149. Up. They went to 100. They took a dip. The Packers, 146. Up. They took a dip. Interesting. Pretty interesting. Again, I kind of love looking at these rankings because it just shows you how misleading all this stuff can be. You know, the Lions, the Bills, the Ravens, the Buccaneers, the Commanders. Top 5. Let's just go back to the Bengals as well. Top 6. Top 6. All gone. The top 6 offenses, all gone. The Buccaneers struggled to even make the playoffs. You know that they needed to win that final game just to limp into the playoffs. The Bengals didn't even make the playoffs. And the Chiefs, who are all the way at the bottom, 15th, they're in the Super Bowl. The Texans had a higher ranking rushing offense than passing offense, especially with all the injuries. Diggs gone, Tank Dell gone, terrible O-line. Oh, man. Oh, brother. If you want to use stats, then use stats, man. Bring it on. I can do this all day. That's why you can't just use stats through this narrow lens. And isn't it weird that in this whole thing, it's pretty much like every jersey except Philadelphia Eagles? You have like one Eagle. You see more Kansas City Chiefs. You see Dallas Cowboys, Packers jerseys. Because there's no Eagles fans there, I'm sure, right? Okay. Pretty funny. Pretty funny. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Saquon Barkley? Do you think it's more likely that he has a big game or that he is shut down? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.